Hi and welcome back. This is the last vlog of the Scandinavian Loop trip. Our last destination is Gothenburg in Sweden. We started the trip from Åndalsnes to Gothenburg with a train ride to Oslo via Donbas. In Oslo we had a 5-hour stopover. We locked our backpacks at the train station and went exploring the city. Right near the train station is the Opera, an impressive building. You can just walk on the roof and enjoy the view. Behind the Opera House is the Munch Museum, where you can have a look at the famous work of Edvard Munch. Right next to it is a small burger place where we had lunch. The main tourist attractions in Oslo, however, are just in the opposite direction, so we headed there. Our destination was the Royal Palace. First we walked past the old stock exchange and then headed towards the cathedral. Then we walked along the famous street Karl Johansgate to the Parliament building. In general, I was very positively surprised by Oslo. Especially striking was the silence. There were hardly any cars on the road, and if we saw cars, then they were mostly electric. That was very pleasant. A few steps further, there is the National Theatre. Across the street is the law faculty of the University of Oslo. Finally, we reached the Royal Palace. However, we only stayed there for a short period of time and immediately turned back around because we didn't have that much time left. So we made the best of our short stay and then continued towards Gothenburg. We left Oslo in the evening and wanted to take the train directly to Gothenburg. However, there were problems again and we had to change to a bus. With a decent delay, we arrived in Gothenburg and went to our accommodation feeling exhausted. For the 2 nights we booked a room in a hostel with a good location to explore the city. It's about 20 minutes of walking from the main station to the hostel. Since we had a delay with the train, we were happy that someone waited for us for check-in after 10 p.m. The room was very neat and we went to bed feeling drained. The next day awaited us with pouring rain. The plan was to walk around the city, but instead we had a nice breakfast and waited until it stopped raining. At least that was the plan, because it just did not stop raining. So we went out and walked towards the Garden Society of Gothenburg. I won't even try to pronounce the name of the park where we walked. In the so-called Palmhuset, there are many beautiful plants to discover. There we were able to warm up a bit and dry our clothes. After 1.5 hours of checking out plants, it was still raining, so we decided to walk back to the hostel. There we arrived completely wet, the water even soaked through the jacket. After some time it finally stopped raining and we could start exploring the city in the afternoon. we wanted to walk to the famous Haga district. On the way, we passed the university. Right near the university is the Vasa Church. Then we came across the Social Science Library and the School of Economics. Finally, we reached Haga. As expected, this part of the city is beautiful. Unfortunately, it was already getting a bit dark at this point. To let the evening end nicely, we went to a billiard place. There we spent a few great last hours. On the way back to the hostel, we walked a small detour through the city center to get a few more impressions. And with that, our time in Gothenburg was already over. The next day, the return trip to Berlin was on the agenda. We got up early to pack all our stuff to catch the train to Copenhagen at 6:40 AM. Now there was great weather with not a cloud in the sky. Well, you can plan weather conditions while booking a trip. The train ride itself went smoothly. We saw how nature and weather changed along the way. Slowly we started to process the trip and all our impressions. The time passed so quickly. We wrote some last words into our diary and looked back on an amazing trip. In Copenhagen, we had only a very short stop, which was just enough for a quick meal. Then we took the next train to Hamburg and then one last train ride to Berlin. So our trip through Denmark, Sweden and Norway came to an end after 21 days. It was a great adventure with many heights but also some difficulties. We would still recommend it to everyone. We made it! We are back in Berlin after a 13-hour trip from Göteborg to Berlin. I think 13 hours. We are back in Berlin after 3 weeks of traveling through Scandinavia. Our last day was a whole travel day, so we got up early at 5 AM and then arrived in Berlin at, I think, prime time 2015. And yeah, so we are back now. And it was a really great trip. And we have a lot of photos and videos. I think on my phone I have nearly 2,000 photos and videos. And on my camera 1K as well, and on the other camera I don't even know. So we have a lot of impressions to look through, and yeah, now we are done with the travel, and I hope you like the videos, and see you with our next travel.